Jelena Dokic, lovely to speak to you here on Sportsday Western Australia.
Yeah, you too, Peter. Thank you so much for having me.
Can I congratulate you firstly before we get into what is an unbelievable documentary that's in cinemas at the moment termed Unbreakable, about your media work. You know, I've been involved in the media a long time and, you know, we love our tennis in our family and we watch the coverage that you're involved with and you seem very comfortable with your media role. I gather you enjoy it.
Yeah, I do. It's tennis in general is a passion of mine, and I went into commentary and TV after I retired. And yes, I love it. Firstly, I think I've been lucky because I've been able to kind of talk tennis and then develop my skills from there. And I think also with a little bit maybe with my history during my tennis career with the media and some of the things that I went through, which you do see in this documentary. I had, I think, in me a little bit of that passion to come through and be in the media and maybe, put my kind of expertise forward and to do interviews and to be able to talk to players and maybe to be able to do it in a kind of really nice and kind way. And I in general just love it all. And I'm very lucky that I've got an unbelievable Channel 9 family behind me and supporting me.
Yeah, fantastic. And continued success with your role in the media. Now, the book came out in 2017. It's in our collection at home. And now we've got the movie or the documentary that's hit cinemas around the country. Did you ever think it would get to this?
To be honest with you, no. We wrote Unbreakable. It's actually exactly now 7 years ago. It will be actually 7 years tomorrow, believe it or not. So just the fact that I even know the date, I think says a lot because it's changed my life. It literally saved my life. Being able to be vulnerable and find my voice and be able to kind of reclaim my life and not be silenced for the first time in my whole life about domestic violence, child abuse and mental health. No, because I wrote my second book, Fearless, a year ago, which is also a bestseller. And there is a lot of stories and books that are out there that don't get turned into documentaries. There's a reason for that. But also it has a lot to do with the person going through it and a lot of the trauma that you experience. It's not the easiest thing to do to go on then extra on camera to talk about it, to put it together, to go through the archive footage. And not a lot of companies out there will take on even, or used to really, especially 10, even 5 years ago, take on stories about the really important subjects and the tough subjects that I cover, but even more so documentaries. We got a lot of doors closed both for the book and the documentary, and there was always kind of in the end one that wanted to do it and open the door to telling the story and normalizing the conversation. So to have it in a documentary, to be honest with you, is quite a shock for me, but even more so to actually have it out, have it at film festivals. And we are actually number one in the box office of Australian films in the last week already and sold out premieres and standing ovations. I have to say I am in shock, positive shock obviously, but I'm in shock.
It's an amazing story, and in the time that we've got, I'd love to share some of those experiences with you. As we know, your dad very much is front and centre in this documentary. I've done a bit of homework and I came across a press conference that you did when you were a young girl, you're a teenager, and the media questioned you about your dad's involvement. And you said family is the biggest support you can have. Do you remember that moment? Were you forced to say that quote under pressure, or did you actually believe that as a young girl?
Well, since you saw the documentary, you know that me saying that I was forced to say everything. So, and that's now not a secret. That was already not a secret after my first book came out. Of course, in general, family should be something that's your biggest support, but that was not the case for me. Everything I said, especially as a young child and until I left home, was everything that I was basically taught, trained and raised and told to say, because I was between two fires, and that was between my father and coming back to the hotel room and potentially having a beating from which I might not even survive and come out alive. And then on the other hand, I knew that I was going to, like I was, get hammered by media, by fans, by sponsors, by everyone. So for me, it was a lose-lose scenario. And now you saw the documentary, you saw that 15, 16, 17-year-old girl going through that, knowing that she was in a situation where I couldn't win. And I think my face says it all. There's one person in the documentary that says Jelena's press conferences were like hostage situations. And I saw that. And I was like, yeah, exactly. You just described it exactly like that. So that was very important for us to show, because the footage that I saw that we kind of pulled out of the archives, a lot of it I remember, some of it I actually forgot about, some of it I didn't even know existed. It really tells a story, and it tells a story of what happens with domestic violence and family violence, especially with young girls and vulnerable girls that are abused, especially from a very young age.
Your father had a vice-like grip on your life at a very young age. And in a situation where he saw the potential in you as a teenager, people are saying that he saw you as maybe the key to get a better life for him, for you, and the family. Did you honestly believe that he was trying to do the best thing for the family at that point in time, using yourself as the vehicle?
Well, I don't think I can get into, I think it's hard to get into a mind of a 8-year-old or a 10-year-old, but I knew that from the beginning. Look, we grew up in poverty. We were refugees twice, especially when we came to Australia. It was extremely hard for him to adapt to a new culture. He didn't speak a word of English, but also he became an alcoholic. That's all in the documentary and my books. So he used to tell me that actually all the time, every single day, that I was the way out for the family, and if I don't do it, the whole family will suffer if I don't make it as a tennis player. Of course, tennis is a very high-profile sport with a lot of money in it, and I always say that tennis and sports like tennis, especially individual sports where there's a lot of money, that it literally creates monsters all around. And it's not just the parents, it's coaches, it's a lot of staff that's around, and that's part of a player's team. So yeah, that's not a secret. He has said that publicly. I was the way out, and to be honest with you, I was never treated like anything else other than that, because if my father and in general, if he truly cared for me as a parent and loved me as a parent, maybe we would actually, even after all of those years, maybe even have some kind of a relationship today. So there's no secret that that's all that he wanted.
It's interesting. A lot of people talk about it, and it is very much a big part of the documentary. That footage of you as a 16-year-old, the blonde girl in the ponytail, walking out, round one Wimbledon, taking on then the number one Martina Hingis. And that really rocketed you to stardom when you beat Hingis. Your father was in the crowd. Explain what you felt walking on to take on the world's number one at that stage.
Look, for me, it was my breakthrough. I mean, to this day, that's one of the biggest upsets in tennis history. And there's a big part of it early on. That's how the documentary really shows a lot and starts off with that Wimbledon. And when you beat the world number one after actually qualifying through and getting to the first round of a Grand Slam, and you beat the world number one, and there's nothing, no reaction from your parents, no kind of even a little bit of well done or validation. It's not the easiest thing to continue going through. But again, for me, it was more so, again, I think the abuse, because you also just never knew when my next beating would come and how violent it would be, because I got beaten and I got abused even when I won. So for me, you can even see in those matches that even when I'm winning and when I'm having some of those biggest highlights, especially that the following year when I get to the semi-finals of Wimbledon, you get to the semi-finals as a 17-year-old and my father doesn't allow me to come back home to the hotel, and I end up having to sleep on the grounds of Wimbledon and hide in the players' lounge. So it says, I think, a lot about how far I think the abuse can go and what it does and what individual sports do and just the kind of abuse I think that young especially girls, go through and suffer, all for success and money.
It's interesting. There's a lot of stories, particularly from Eastern European families, and I've got an ethnic background, and I can relate to it, not to the degree that you went through. That I just can't relate what you went through as a young girl. But a lot of young people were fearful of their fathers. Were you fearful of your father from a young age? And I suppose when it came to tennis, was there always pressure to you to satisfy your dad on court, knowing if he wasn't pleased with the consequences, then you didn't know what was ahead of you?
Yeah, of course. I lived in fear every single day from the age of 6, because that's when the abuse started. I saw it directed towards my mother when I was younger, before I even started playing tennis, and it was mostly verbal and emotional abuse, but never towards me. The day I started playing tennis, it all started going towards me. Of course, I was fearful, because I detailed that in the book and the documentary. I was already at the age of 10 and 11 beaten violently and with a leather belt to the point of bleeding. By the time I was 16, 17, I had beatings where I was beaten unconscious. So, yeah, of course, I lived in fear. I lived in fear for 10, 12 years after I escaped home at the age of 19. This type of, not just abuse, but I think this type of parenting or people that are around you for a very long time, because you're a child and there's nothing you can do. You can escape, and especially as a 10, 11-year-old, it stays with you. This is what trauma is. This is why it's important to tell these stories, to see what victims and survivors go through, what that looks like. That is why it was so important for me to write my book. I say at the end of my first book, if it helps one person, to me it's mission accomplished. That's why I did it. And the same with documentary. It was the same thing. These conversations need to, if they haven't already started, they have to be. These stories need to be shared in order for us to be able to change something. But I also, at the end of the day, and I think this is really important, because you and I right now are talking about, those let's say, hard stories and heady subjects, and even though they have to be told, I want people to look at me as a winner and a success story, because honestly, I could have easily not been here. All of that abuse and violence caused me a lot of mental health issues, from depression, anxiety, PTSD, to even an eating disorder. I almost took my own life, and for me to even be standing today is just massive. So I want people to be able to go, you know what, she's a winner, she's a success story, and maybe someone out there at the same time will go, you know what, she's giving me the inspiration. If she can do it, I can do it too. But it's important to tell the story that we need to talk about this. There's still a lot of this out there. We are a lot better than we used to be. There is no doubt about that. But I always say, even as a sport, even as tennis, but even more so as a society and world, there is so much more that we can still do. And shying away from telling stories like this because they might be sad or they might be hard is exactly why victims and survivors of any kind of abuse or violence suffer. And because that way we turn our backs to them.
Amazing. It is just an amazing story. It really is, Jelena. And the way you're taking it and the way you're delivering it is an inspiration to many people. Just a few more questions, if you don't mind. You're going through hell. There's no question you're going through hell as a young girl, as a young woman. Did anyone reach out to try and help you?
To be honest, look, for me, it was even not so much reaching out while I was in that situation. For me, it was even more so after. I left home on my own at 19 years of age. I escaped in the middle of the night during a tennis tournament. I knew that was going to bring absolute hell to my life. Still, my father would show up at tournaments. I had around-the-clock security for years and years on the tour. I wanted to bring this story forward because it was also very important to see what went on at the time of the media. Everyone looked at it as a joke. Everyone looked at it as a headline. Everyone looked at it, they used to call him the mad dad or things like that, but no one ever found that behaviour concerning. By the way, behind closed doors, it was a million times worse. And journalists and everyone did interviews with him. They knew he was aggressive. They knew he was drunk. They would always get something. But no one for a second stopped to actually find that behaviour concerning and to call it out and to go, look, there's 2 underage kids going home with this person, which was me and my brother, who was actually 8 years younger. So but I wanted to show that as well. And look, I'm very open and honest about this everywhere, whether I speak or documentary. Did people know? Did people see? Absolutely, hundreds of people. But here's the thing. I come from a place, and this is extremely important. I really want to highlight this, place of kindness, a place of just everything that's good, positive. And I want to turn a lot of that negativity and, let's say, pain into power, into a voice, into change, into purpose, and what my legacy is. I do not blame absolutely anyone. There is no hate, bitterness, or resentment, and this is extremely important. No, I am friends with so many people that knew and saw. We're good friends. We work together. Even the ones that I don't work with, like, absolutely all good. So many people have apologized, and I appreciate that, but that's what this is about. I would not be able to turn my life around, survive, thrive now. I like to say I'm not even a survivor, but a thriver. I will also not be able to make a difference and change for someone else out there and be able to help and turn this into a legacy and my purpose if I came from a resentful place. And I genuinely never had any bitterness and resentment and hate towards anyone. Even my father, people find that shocking, but I don't hate him. I don't necessarily forgive him, but I don't hate him because I really believe that good always beats the bad, and I like to say the evil. That's the only way to go into this, is with goodness and with kindness. So I wanted to show that. That was really important for me, and absolutely, I don't want one article or anyone to say anything bad about anybody else. It's just about moving forward now, 25 years on, asking the question, are we better than then? And that's what I would like to answer. Then I would like the answer to be, yes, we are. And like I said to you, I think we are, but I still think we need to continue not being complacent, and we need to do more work.
It's amazing because there's been stories, probably not as significant as yours, but Mary Pierce had a story about her father. I know Mirjana Lukic as well, Jennifer Capriati. There's been some situations where the fathers have taken control of young tennis players' lives and made them hell, as I said, not to the degree that we're talking about today. When's the last time you had contact with your dad?
10 years ago. I haven't spoken to him in almost a decade. And that's okay. I tried to reconcile with him a couple of years after I left home. Tried to reconcile with him twice. You always kind of feel like you want to give an extra maybe chance to family and maybe think that someone has changed, which was not the case. He's a very complex but also dark and negative person. Wasn't even able to kind of say sorry. In fact, he says he would do it all again. So for me, I had to make that call of not having toxicity and negativity in my life. And it was going to be very damaging as I get older. I really didn't need that in my life. So, I've made that choice. Not that I don't think it matters to him really, because if he wanted to reach out or change that, he would have and he could have. And that's all right. Sometimes these relationships go like that. A lot of people have that, and I've spoken to, they come up to me every single day, unfortunately, that have very similar circumstances. But I think even you kind of, I turned 30 and I kind of went, you know what, I don't need this in my life, and you need to set boundaries where you don't need it to affect you, and I didn't need that in my life.
What about family? Is any family still connected to Jelena Dokic?
Yeah, look, I don't have a big family. I never have. I lost grandparents very early. I have a great relationship with my brother. He's 8 years younger. That's extremely important to me. I've got a good relationship with my mum, even though that was a difficult one for a while because she supported my dad all the way. But we've been able to talk that out, and we have a good relationship today.